Hello YouTube, this is Almagent here, bringing you the first in the archive series on Wargame European Escalation, where I give a brief but accurate summary of the main units that you'll want to use in Wargame European Escalation, their advantages, their disadvantages, the scenarios you'll use them in, and some basic gameplay tips to get you started in this game. Wargame's quite a tricky game to master. It's very realistic, very detailed, so this is basically what we're going to do. So, first off, I'm going to be explaining the units you're going to want to get when you start the game. Wargame works on an unlock system, where you start off with a few basic units unlocked, and then as you complete campaign missions and multiplayer levels, you gain extra points which you can spend unlocking further units. I've unlocked all of them, so I'm going to just go through them and tell you which ones are worth your while. We're going to start off with Warsaw PACT, as this is the side I generally play as, so I know more, but I will be doing NATO as well. And in this first episode, we're going to be covering the logistic, the Recon, and the support vehicles of the Warsaw PACT. Okay, so first off, logistic. Logistic covers the basic logistics of your army. They don't have any combat use directly, and you'll never really want them in a fight. If they are, you're doing something wrong, but they're vital to the running of your army. Okay, logistic vehicles are split into two categories: the command vehicles, which are identified by the star you can see there, and supply vehicles that keep your unit refueled. Command vehicles are the most important units in your deck, as with them you can control sectors, allowing you to gain points to reinforce units to build up your army. And supply vehicles, which make sure that your units that you have on the field are always have enough fuel, enough armor, and enough ammunition to deal with the enemy. So, first off, logistics. Okay, now you'll start off with Warsaw PACT with only one command vehicle, the UAZ 469B. And basically this is a standard command vehicle, as you'll find out the game. It's fairly fast. And it can go quite far. But okay, similar and a similar unlock would be the Veren's UAZ, the East German variant, which are identical in every way. And basically, this in the classic command vehicles, what they are basically is they're the cheapest form of command vehicles at the minimum 200 points required for a command vehicle, but they do not have any armor and they do not have any means to defend themselves. Okay, generally, they're a very bad unit to use. You'll never actually, once you've unlocked the armored command vehicles, which I'd recommend as a priority, you'll never want to field these in the game, because they may be the cheapest, but they're still 200 points, and you can only have a limited amount of them in a game. So basically, you want to keep these guys safe. And keeping them safe means keeping them armored. Your recon units, for a small amount of expenditure, have a lot more survivability. Okay, and when you're spending this much on a unit, you're going to want to keep it safe. Even a stray artillery shell can knock these out in one hit. They only have 5 health points, and as you can see, no armor. However, their advantage is generally you can field them in a much greater quantity than the other command vehicles. They're usually limited to either 2 or 4 being able to build. These guys can have 6, so they are good on very large maps in Wargame and when you're playing with a smaller number of people, because otherwise you might not be able to build. If you're only using the armored command vehicles, you might not have the resources and the quantity to capture all the zones, meaning that even if you've secured an area, you will not be able to fully utilize it. So that's their advantage. So I'd use these on sort of big maps where I can put them far behind the lines, and hopefully the enemy won't be targeting them. Okay, then we'll move on to the first armored command vehicle, the BDR DM2U. This is my personal favorite command vehicle. It costs a bit 20 units more, but it goes faster. It doesn't have the same kind of range as the other units, actually. Yeah, it only can go 750 kilometers compared to 1,000. but this has armor and it has a full 10 health points. Unless you have, there is a concentrated artillery barrage that's been corrected. You don't have to fear these units. This is actually, I think, the best command armor in the game, because it boasts a 4-unit deployable. So you can deploy 4 of these, which is more than satisfactory for most games. If you're just doing the small number of players in small maps, or 4 players in the bigger maps, generally these will suit you for the game. Okay, and then we move on to the BDRM 1K. This is version of the command armor is 250, so it's a bit more than the BDRM 2U. From what I remember, you can only field 2 of these per game. But their advantage is they have a gun. This is one of the few command units and the only one in the Warsaw PACT that can defend itself. The cannon itself isn't that good. It's got the same kind of range as a tank gun, but it's inaccurate and it can't really damage anything, and it's got low ammo. So it's basically, don't lower the defenses when you're fielding this command vehicle because you think, oh, it's got a gun. Don't. Okay, this is a last resort weapon that could maybe finish something off that's just about on the edge of routing after clearing through your defenses. It's slower than the others, the 60 kilometers an hour. So keep this in mind. If it's running from stuff, the other units, such as the other command vehicles, it won't be able to run away as fast as they can. On the plus side, though, it does have exceptional optics. The only one of the only 2 packed units that has this benefit. And it's a plus factor definitely, but it might cost 30 points more, but then you could save 30 points by not having a recon vehicle in its defense. Worth considering. And then finally, the MI2D command helo. This was originally 300 points. Eugen has now lowered it to 240. Also, guess what? A last point on the BDRM 1K. If you're using this, I'd recommend using it in conjunction with the BDRM 2U. Basically, use these as sort of behind the front line to protect them from artillery, and then as a front line unit, this is what I'd recommend because it's a bit tougher. I think it has. Yeah, it's also got side armor 1, compared to the BDRM, which has only got front 1. So worth keeping in mind. It's a tougher unit. But anyway, back to the command helo. Command helos are an interesting unit. Basically, they have the same kind of health as the command vehicles, but they cost 40 more. For this, you get the fact that they're a helicopter, which means they have excellent speed of 260, which means that if you can spot a threat to it in time and manage to take it off, as long as there's no AA in the air, it can run away from any threat to it much easier than the other units can. Also, you can use it to capture points deep in enemy territory that they might have ignored, especially on big maps. It can be very useful as a sort of flanking maneuver, where you start off the game with one of these and maybe a few defense helos, fly it to like a reinforcement zone that the enemy would normally capture it first thanks to its amazing speed of 260 kilometers an hour, and then deploy units from there right in their rear. Shake it up a bit. However, of course, this is a command helo. It's very weak. So yeah, basically this is a sort of a wild card. You generally don't see command helos in Wargame, but they do have their use. Okay, so next up we have the FOB forward operating bases. Okay, now these are quite a fairly unique unit in the terms of you can only field these once in the deployment phase at the start of a game. Once the game is started, these are no longer available to buy. They cost 100 each, and with that give 10,000 supplies. Now, of course, these are a building, you can't move them, so they're limited to the starting area. But put it simply, this is by far the most cost-effective way of supplies. Okay, so basically the use of these is usually recommended because it means that your other supplies convoys, such as these units here, once they're out of supplies, there is still use for them. You can take them back to the FOB and refill them. So basically this is your reserves. The trucks are your transport methods with a bit of supplies extra. as a benefit. I believe this is unlocked in the start of the deck, and it's always a useful thing to have because it'll save you a lot of points during the game. So in terms of supply trucks, let's start off with the Ural 375D and its upgradable counterpart, the Ural 4320. This is the basic packed supply truck, and basically it's, you get 750 liters, which is okay, and it's 15, which is very cheap, which is a big plus. However, when you upgrade it, here's the interesting, okay? It costs 15 and it delivers 750. Its upgradable version costs 20, but it carries 1,000. So these two units carry the same amount of supplies per cost, but the upgraded version travels at 70, the regular one travels at 50. So basically, I'd recommend upgrading this first. These supply trucks, you can deploy them in huge numbers, and basically, of course, their disadvantage is they aren't armored, so they're going to die fairly quickly, especially under artillery fire. But basically, this is, if you buy this unit and put these two in your deck, generally, unless you're going for a really long game, these will be you can buy these and they'll be all the supplies you'll ever need. Okay, I'd recommend buying the 4320s first because it's the same kind of, because you're not getting any more supplies for your buck, but they're faster. After that, you've also got the Polish supply truck. It's identical to the basic Soviet one in every single way, but it means that if you use you get it. You'll be able to field it in big numbers, so you can have lots of supplies. It's always a bonus. Then, stepping great up from that, you get the armoured supply trucks in the form of the T813 East German supply truck and the Kolos Czechoslovakian supply truck. Both 25, both identical in every way. They have a basic PKT machine gun, very fast, 80 kilometers an hour, faster than the other supply trucks, and they have the level 1 armour, so they can carry. So they are good. Also, I think I'm correct in saying they have a similar amount of supplies for the back as the other ones, but the disadvantage of these, remember, is they're fielded in lesser numbers. So these are still the good basic supply trucks because you can have lots of them. But the thing is, the advantage of the Kolos is, apart from the German version, is the machine gun. Now, supply trucks are captured by the enemy whenever they get too close to them without your units being in there. But the thing is that if your units are there, because of this capture feature, units don't auto fire on supply trucks because there's always the option to capture them. Now, you can take advantage of these with armored supply trucks because you can use the machine gun. The machine gun will be firing, they won't be firing back at it. So if you have a huge swarm of these things, they can deliver a large amount of firepower without being attacked, without a bit of micromanagement from your opponent. So always be wary of this. Sometimes it might be worth it to destroy these supply trucks, even if they could help you, just to prevent the damage being done. That's it apart from that. So basically, if you're only thinking about supplies in limited numbers and using FOBs to have a sort of rolling convoy system, the Kolos and the T813 are the ones to go for, because same amount of supplies for your buck, but they're the fastest and they are armoured and armed. However, for bigger games, these ones are better because you can field a lot more of them. Then, for supply helicopters, PACT only has one unit, but it is the best in my opinion. The Mi-26, nicknamed the Flying FOB, because the two of these deliver the same amount of supplies as an FOB, 10,000. However, they cost 125, so you're paying a lot more for your supplies than the FOB, just showing you the price difference. But of course, these are mobile. They have an impressive speed of 250 kilometers an hour, so and they can keep a whole army running for several minutes. But of course, these are very expensive and fragile. So basically, I'd recommend the Mi-26 as a unit to resupply an army when it's not fighting. It gets too expensive to use in a combat zone, and the fact that if you're in a combat zone, they'll probably have some AA which will shred it before it can even land if they're micromanaging, although they might not be, but still artillery can eat these things for breakfast, as I have in many other games when I'm playing as NATO, and it's a beautiful sight. Anyway, that's enough of the logistic, onto the reconnaissance. Now, PACT has a huge amount of recon open to it, but I'll concentrate on the main ones. Okay, so first off, you got the sort of keep-based recons, such as the Offcuts UAS, and this UAS here. Okay, so this unit here, this unit here. Basically, they're the same in most ways. You can upgrade them to give them a bit of firepower. We got a little machine gun on this one, even a grenade launcher on this recon. But basically, for these keep recons, basically, you're getting fast units with very good optics, as you can see here. So they can spot stuff quite well, and they've got good range. So basically, they're fast and they've got good range, but they're weak. They're gonna die fast. Overall, I wouldn't recommend using these because recon units are generally vital for PACT units because their other units have awful reconnaissance abilities themselves, and generally, if they don't have recon, they're blind. So basically, I wouldn't use these. They're too fragile for use as as a recon vehicle. However, they are fair to keep at 30 for recon vehicles. So if you're like posting them at various points across the map, just to make sure the enemy is not trying to do anything sneaky, these are quite good, I'd say. Also for trying to like sneak them into the enemy zone to try and get a few keep spots on enemy units for your artillery. These are quite good as well. Then we've got the sort of basic armoured recons. East Germany has a whole line of these. We got this little PT-76 here, Speo 40A, and the Speo 40B. Basically, you pay a bit more armour for these. I think also the BDRM for this from the Soviets. Basically, they've got a little bit of armour, but they still have the kind of speed that their Geep versions have, but you pay a bit more for the armor. Also, some of them have some interesting weapons. This rifle doesn't look good. So yeah, overall, armored recons are the way to go. And they range from the very cheap recon unit here, as you can see, only 20, but it's slow. So overall, this type of armored recon, it's a bit slower than the keeps, but it's got the armor, which is what you want. Okay, so then we move on to the heavy armored recon, which takes the form of the PT-76, and I think the PT-76, yeah, the East Germans have their own version of the basic Soviet one. So which basically, it's the same thing as other ones, but then for the Soviets, this is where it gets interesting when you start upgrading it. When you go to the PT-71, you get an ATKM. Also, you've got side armor. Then if you go into the prototype versions, you get some nice accuracy on these ATKMs, and you get a nice gun. Also, I think you get an upgrade in optics. Yep, you get, when you go into the prototype versions, you get very good optics. Basic version only has good optics. So yeah, that's what that recon unit is. So the PT-71, it's a sort of it's basically you're paying for an extra tank. It's got a gun, it's got an ATKM that can, it's only got a 4 accuracy though, so don't expect it to hit anything, but with ATKMs as they are, these things are quite usually an interesting boost to your army. Note however that these heavily armoured recons are slow, so this can be dangerous at the start of the game because you might push your units in and not notice that this recon is still trying to keep up with it. Okay, so these are good for heavy combat recon because they're armoured and they've got a bit of firepower, but they're slow. Then we've got the last recon unit, which is the BRM1. This is a very interesting recon unit. It's quite expensive, it's 65, but it's got exceptional optics. This is, apart from the command vehicle, the only Recon unit that has exceptional optics on in terms of our land units for PACT. I don't know, it's pretty much the same as the BDRM 1K. In terms of most abilities, it's just the fact that you don't usually use command vehicles for recon. So if you want exceptional optics, this is the one to go for. So this can spot stuff very easily. But just be wary, it's a 65. So the danger with this thing is it's expensive, so you keep it behind your front lines to protect it. But that means you're not using its recon ability to the full. That's why I don't generally use these ones. In terms of air recon, we've got the Mi-2 helicopter and also the Mi-2 German helicopter. The same deal here, just a different flag. 260 speed, so fairly fast. It won't be able to keep up with your helicopters. For the most part, it can lag behind and slow down helicopter attacks. But for helping to recon other stuff, it's got the very good optics. One thing to note, it's got a bad operational range, so you might want to take that into account. Also, you can upgrade it for an extra 10 points. You give it a little autocannon, and for an extra 10 points again, you give it some rocket pods to give it a bit of bite. Overall, this is a good recon unit to help your land units, because the speed isn't an issue, because no land unit can go at 260 kilometers an hour. And it can be useful where your land recon units can't go somewhere without getting killed. Then we have the other air unit, the Mi-9. So this is a bit faster at 290 kilometers an hour, and it has the lovely exceptional optics. The range is also a bit improved, if I am correct. Let's see. Yep, it's got an extra 200 kilometers of range. So this is the helicopter you'll want to use for your airborne raiding parties. It's got the exceptional optics, and it's only slightly slower than some of the more advanced PACT helicopters. So overall, this is basically use this for your helicopter recon. You use this to support your land recon. That's recon summed up. Then we move into support. Support is important. It comprises of AA defenses to protect yourself from helicopters, and artillery to pound the enemy into submission. Let's start off with airborne stuff. The first airborne class you can have is anti-aircraft artillery. Basically, this is very short range, but if a helicopter gets anywhere near this stuff, it's going to be screwed. So here we have the little BTR Zabuti. It's got a lot of ammo, but it's very slow. Okay, so this is definitely a sort of ambush stuff that you'll say you have it next to your command vehicle, but you don't want to spend too much on it because you're attacking. A helicopter might get in, and these heavy machine guns will, discourage it from getting any closer. Let's just put it like that. So basically, very keep recon, or not recon, AAA, AAA. You spread it around the place so a helicopter can't get anywhere near your stuff without taking a bit of damage. But overall, I wouldn't use this generally because it's got no armor, it's got no range. Similar story to, let's see, we got the Flakpedzrika. I'm sorry, I can't really pronounce these stuff. Similar kind of system, it's just East German. We've got the Kamaz Zu-22 anti-aircraft artillery. Now this is interesting, it's got a very fast 90 kilometers an hour, so this I'd say would be good for sort of combating and helicopter spam. So you buy a ton of these because they're only 15 each, and then you can just throw them at the enemy air support, because even though the enemy helicopters will be firing at them long before these guys get into range, they're fast, so you can easily combat them and shoo them away. Then you've got the Praga. This is an interesting AA because it's originally artillery only, but then it gets a few missiles when you upgrade it. Apart from the Tunguska, this is the only combined system there is in AA. So you get some basic artillery, then you upgrade to the Strop, which has got a better artillery, and then the Strop 2, which has got these Igla missiles. Now, the Igla missiles are interesting. They have a very bad range for AA missiles, at only 2,400 kilometers. advanced NATO helicopters will be able to outrange them, but they have accuracy 9, which means pretty much if this thing is launched, it's going to hit. And AA missiles do a lot of damage. Also, this is quite cute at 50. So basically, this is, for example, a variant of the ambush AA where you pay a bit more, but you've got these eyeglass. So overall, quite interesting. And then you've got some. And I think that's. Oh, we also have the Svika artillery. I think this is the stuff you get as decent. It's the same kind of story. Keep powerful when it gets into range, but out of range, it won't do a sausage really. Then we get into the combined AA, as I already showed the Strop 2 as a sort of ambush one. Then there's the Tunguska. So for the basic Tunguska, you've got the autocannons, same story, but you've also got these basic AA missiles that have equal range to any AGM from a helicopter, and bad accuracy. But they've got 8 missiles, which is a plus. 8 missiles is quite a lot, and some basic speed and some basic armor. Then you upgrade to the 2K22M Tunguska. It gets a very nice SAM, which can outrange any helicopter by a comfortable margin. Accuracy is given a boost, as is damage. That's it. It gets the better missiles for the M variant. This is my basic AA unit that I always use, just because it's reliable, because it's got these SAMs are very good. If you give it, say, a level 1 veterancy, it can usually one-hit NATO helicopters. It rarely misses. And usually, after the first few kills, it might get a bit more experience to be a confirmed one hit. But basically, this is my preferred unit because it's got the AA missiles to just cause carnage to helicopters, but it's also got the autocannons as sort of reassuring backup. It's got 8 missiles though, so generally it won't need resupplied too often, but you might want to keep a supply truck one or two nearby just in case they start spamming it. But overall, this thing can take care of itself in most situations. Then you've got missile only AA. This stuff's generally delicate, but has a huge range and decent accuracy. So you've got the Cub. As you can see, it basically gets the Tunguska's AA missile, but you get it for about 40 points less. But it's slow and weak. Then you can upgrade to the Buck, which is a longer range and very nice accuracy in AP, and then the Buck M1, which gets even more accuracy in HE power, and then 4,200 meters range, the maximum for AA missiles. Also gets a slight increase in speed and range, but basically, so this stuff is basically very for uber long range shooting that hits them and does huge damage. But that's the thing, they'll never see this thing coming. Apart from that, I think the only other dedicated AA platform is the Strela 10, which has 12 missiles, so it's got a lot of missiles, but its range isn't good. Overall, I wouldn't use this, except for endurance AA. I'd say that's where its strong point, where you want to have some AA in an area, and you don't want to waste points resupplying it. So there we go. Then after that, we move on to the artillery side of it. So for long range damage. So first off, the Pion, and then upgrading to the Malka. This is interesting artillery. It's basically only a gun artillery. It's slow, but its rate of fire is pretty bad, and its ammunition's pretty bad too. You can only fire 2 or 3 shots a minute, so it's quite slow. But the advantage of this artillery is, one, its range. As you can see, especially when you upgrade to the Malka, this thing will be able to hit anything on the map from any point without a too large a decrease in accuracy. So this is very good for putting this in your base and then cutting it out with a few FOBs around it to keep it firing throughout the game. This thing can do a lot of damage. It's also got good accuracy, so overall this is your basic dedicated artillery unit. Oh, I've just missed that. There's also some OSA AA missiles. Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of variation in PACT AA. This is one of their strong points. So they've got a lot of stuff. Overall, I wouldn't really use this because I prefer the Tunguska. But basically, it's some keep missiles from the looks of it. So if that's your thing, go for it. Anyway, back to the artillery. So then, after that, we got the Dana. Now, this is a pretty nice artillery gun. Its range isn't as good as other stuff, but it's the most accurate artillery gun in the game. This thing can land incredibly accurate shots. So this is very good for picking off enemy unarmored vehicles and command vehicles. Good accuracy. It's also got a little gun and a machine gun on it to give it some backup firepower. It's also incredibly fast. This is going to be useful in artillery v artillery battles, because you can fire a volley and then move it quickly to another point, so it avoids a counter battery fire that could otherwise destroy it. In terms of armor, it's got one front armor, so I wouldn't put too much hopes of it in a battle, but you know, it's fast and accurate. This is one of my preferred artillery guns. Apart from that, I think that's the last of the the sort of barreled artillery. Yep, looks like it. So then we move into rocket launch artillery. This is another packed speciality. They have a huge amount. Okay, so here we have the BM-21 Grad. These are MRLS, multiple rocket launcher vehicles. Basically, these are good for completely suppressing an area and panicking everything in it. These things can cause carnage when they get it right, but they're expensive to run. As you can see here, this is sort of your basic artillery. You also, so yeah, it's got some rockets. It's got 40 rounds of rockets. Generally, rocket artillery fires all of its ammunition at once, so you have to be very careful to make sure you've got a decent shot. It's quite fast, and it can get to quite far around the map. Paying extra 60, you get upgraded to the Czechoslovakian RM70s. Basically, the advantage of this is that you can fire 2 salvos instead of 1, and they've got a machine gun for backup defense. Also, they're a bit faster, but overall, I'd say this is just too expensive for what it is. Don't use this, and don't upgrade to this. This is good for sort of basic stuff, but I wouldn't really use it. At the moment, I'm preferring this. This is better in the current version. You've got the BM-27 Ergan and the BM-30 Smirch. This stuff has a much better range and is more accurate, so it can deliver a slightly better concentrated fire. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So for this stuff, you pay more, but it does damage, and it goes HE power 6 and 5 compared to the BM-21, which only had 3. So this is firing fewer rockets, but it's doing more damage per hit, which can be useful, definitely. After that, we've got the East German variant of the BM-21, and again upgrading to the East German variant of the RM70. So basically, it's the same kind of thing, but with an East German flag on it. So if you want to build lots of these, this is what you'd use. Don't think there's any difference between them, so it's just a matter of national pride which one you use. Then you've got and finally, to round this off for this episode, we have the TOS-1 Buratino. Now this is a very interesting artillery unit. It costs 150, which is a lot. Its range is quite bad. The gap between the minimum firing range and the maximum firing range is very nasty. The Goldilocks zone is tiny. But the advantage of this thing is basically twofold. One, it's got quite good armor for artillery. It's got 5 front, 3 side, and then 1 everywhere else. So it can take quite a few hits, surprisingly, but it would have to, because it's quite slow, so it can't run away like other stuff like the Dana. But the advantage of this is this thing does the most damage of any artillery unit in the game. This pretty much routs anything that it hits. So this is a perfect unit to sort of begin and advance with. So you fire a few shots, you let the Buratino rain down. Everyone's panicked, so it doesn't matter what you're attacking with, they can't fire back. Good. It's a great unit to use. So I think this will do it. So we've covered logistic, recon, and support vehicles. Thank you very much, and goodbye.